The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
The most optimistic Suns podcast on the planet. I'm doing great. Mike.
Impossible. Impossible. It's literally impossible.
There are a lot of us. But we all try our best. How about Summer League? How about that?
It's been Summer League. I think it's nice, right?
Man.
There was a moment in our Suns fandom where Summer League was really, really important because like 4 guys that were going to play on the team were playing in Summer League, and like that was our chance to see them get significant minutes in like a really high usage role. And now it's not that. Like we are past that. We're down to the point where we're literally discussing trade options for the players or this player playing in Summer League that's on the Suns roster. Well, Summer League is happening. That's kind of where we're at with Summer League. And I'll say this, it's kind of nice. Like, I don't really want to be where OKC is right now or Houston or something like that. Like, I understand the value in that. And, like, long term, it's an interesting situation for both of those teams. But kind of nice to not really care, right?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, it's like I joke about it, like because it's like a crazy come down from where we were just a couple of weeks ago. But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, I'm relishing the ability to not give a shit in the way that like James Jones was there. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if he gives a shit about like just look at who they filled the roster with. I don't want to knock the grind of any of these guys because they're a lot of hardworking players. They're trying to compete for training camp invites and roster spots, two-way spots where they can get them. But just the fact, I mean, our roster is just Jalen Smith and Tyshawn Alexander. Mm-hmm. And then,
even Tyshawn's on a two-way deal.
Tyshawn's on a two-way. First of all, they got to give the other two-way to, like, they got to use, this is an aside, they got to use that this year, right?
Yeah, they didn't use it.
They should use it on, you're inviting a whole Summer League squad out there. You should use it on someone. So I hope they do that. That's just a quick aside. To your point earlier about, like, we used to care about Summer League, I distinctly remember, I'll never forget, being on vacation in a foreign country. It was in Iceland in the summer of, I guess it would have been like 2016. The only reason I was there is because I was young enough that my parents paid for the whole thing. Lovely experience, great country. But I still stayed up late to make sure while my parents were asleep, to make sure that I could catch the Summer League games because I could not miss the debuts of Marquise Chris and Dragan Bender. I think
I was there.
Dragan definitely played. Did Marquise play in that Summer League? I can't remember anymore.
I don't think he did.
I think he might have missed it for some reason. But Dragan had a big game at one point, and we talked it up. So we've come a long way. But
I was there. 2017, 2018, 2019. I was there all 3 years.
With the whole Jalen Smith thing, that's, by the way, sounds like a great experience. I really want to make it out there, maybe next year. I'm getting major like FOMO from all the people we know who are out there, and
Suns
it's like
won't even have a draft pick next year.
Just seems like a blast. I don't even care. I'll go there, just to soak up the vibes. We could talk about how Jalen Smith is playing. That's fine. Like I'm cool with talking about it, but I guess I just want to stress like it feels like there are a lot of trade. For whatever reason, rumors swirling around Jalen right now, and I'm fine with those too. I guess where I just want to create some nuance in the conversation is like you shouldn't be allowing these performances by Jalen Smith in Summer League to be the thing that sways your opinion. And I don't know if I've seen that, but I feel like maybe I've seen something like I feel like a week ago people were saying people were more or less behind Jalen Smith. Maybe that's just me seeing it's optimism season. You know how it is. And I feel like after a couple of games in Summer League, which were, he did things, but were not the best. I feel like I've seen a lot more of that, the trade rumor stuff. And for the record, we should talk about it. Like I'm totally
will.
behind I'm totally behind the trade rumor stuff. Like I think if you have a certain window, you got to improve your team. Like that's me to a T. That's what I think. But like shooting 5 for 15 or whatever he did in a summer league game should not be the reason why you connect from point A to point B. That's all I want to say. It should be like, yeah, you got to come from a different philosophical angle than that, I think. So it's like, it's still summer league. I mean, they shot like 24% from the field in yesterday's game as an entire team. Like, let's not take this too seriously. It's you made a great point on Twitter, just being like that was a game to remind you that this is, you talk about how the team plays, but that was just a bunch of individual guys going out there and hunting their shots. And it's like, it is what it is. What are you really going to take away from that?
Yeah, I calculated this. There were 95 rebounds in that game because of the amount of missed shots that there were.
Oh my God,
95 rebounds. Yeah, in a 40-minute game. And yeah, it was incredibly ugly that last game, and it could get better. And I'll be honest, the way I thought about Jalen Smith before Summer League was that he is a player that appears to need a ton of minutes in order to grow. And I think that's the problem the Suns are running into no matter what. And I think that problem is partially related to the fact that they appear to want him to play power forward, and he looks to be more comfortable playing center. Now, this is an issue, I think, with just what the Suns need and what he is. Because I think what they need is they need a center to back up DeAndre Ayton that's going to be really good. Like, they can't have a ton of drop-off when DeAndre Ayton comes off the court. I mean, how often did we talk about it in the playoffs? How big of a deal it is to keep DeAndre Ayton on the court as much as possible. He's not quite ready to do that. Like, he's not going to do what JaVale McGee does. So where can you find him minutes? At this point, looking at the roster we have, he's got to play power forward. He's got to play next to a center in order to get minutes on this team. And maybe he can do that at some point. Like, I don't really discount the idea that eventually he might be able to do that. But it doesn't look comfortable for him right now, whether that be parking him in the corner offensively and not being involved in a lot of actions, or guarding guys who are trying to attack him off the dribble. It just doesn't look super comfortable doing that either. And when you have a guy that needs a lot of minutes, that's troubling, I think, for the Suns, because ultimately when you're trying to make the finals again, and you're trying to maximize your regular season in order to hold home court advantage once again, because that is important to the Suns, especially now that the crowd is awake and alive, that's tough. You don't have a lot of minutes to give a player like that. And I think that's how I felt before this. And there was a chance, I think, that if he played well enough, that if he looked really comfortable in that role, then there was a chance that I could change my opinion on how he could fit into the team this coming season, maybe playing a smaller role. But yeah, that hasn't changed. I guess I feel how I did before this offseason, and I feel the same. I feel the same way now, I guess.
Yeah, and so do I. I mean, it's the same two issues with him that it's always been. I use issues. I use that word kind of in a narrow sense because I know we haven't even really seen a lot of him at the NBA level, but we've sort of always known about the power forward thing. Just like the lateral quickness is it's an issue. It's not where you want it to be. Some of the closeouts and kind of, what do you want to say?
I was just thinking about our draft episode when he was drafted. I think I said, well, he's obviously a center. And I just said that like it was an obvious conclusion and we don't have to worry about anything else. But now it's like, yeah, it's not that. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they should find some minutes for him at center. That'd be great. But it's like, and on offense, he, like, what are you going to do? Give him the ball in the post? Like, no, they're not going to do that. He has to launch threes in order for it to work. 3 for 11 so far through 2 summer league games. Again, I don't care so much about the summer league games, but it's just, the stroke has to eventually find a balancing point of consistency. Will he get there in time? Maybe he gets there by year 3 or 4 or 5, but can he get there by year 2? Based on what we're seeing, it's a tall order for Jalen Smith. I really think so. Yeah,
I'll be honest. I do kind of believe in his shot. I haven't seen. And look, I've sort of learned the lesson in covering the NBA over the last few years that a pretty shot does not necessarily translate into an efficient shot. That doesn't really matter, but it looks good. Like, the form looks good. It comes off his hands well. It looks nicer in the air. It rotates properly. All those things look fine. but hasn't gone in well in Summer League. That doesn't necessarily matter to me. It's such a small sample size, and if you even expand that to all his minutes playing in the regular season, well, one, no consistent role, no consistent minutes, mostly playing, mostly playing garbage time. Had COVID, like it's not exactly a season that you could really take into account everything that happened and use those stats to really evaluate him one way or another. So the shot is one thing or another, but like even beyond that, in Summer League so far, he's just looked a lot more comfortable close to the rim. He looks like a guy who he's quick off his feet. He jumps really high. He has long arms. It's nice to have a guy like that close to the rim if you can, and if you take him out of the dunker spot and that far away from the basket in the corner, you better have a really good point guard in order to involve that player. And with Summer League, they don't. So we're not really seeing him get involved offensively in the role that he's in. It's possible they put him on with the Suns. It could do a lot better, but it's just interesting.
I am perhaps jumping the gun here because we're supposed to talk about this guy later, but they should have just asked Elfrid Payton to join the Summer League team as as a thing that he has to do upon signing his contract. Would have made the team a lot better in terms of the flow of the offense. If there's one thing Elfrid can do, he can whip the ball around. It's kind of the other stuff. But we should talk about the other guy who I think this team is actually invested in.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch Tyshawn play. First of all, I think it's interesting to think about how they're playing these guys. First of all, Jalen Smith starting at power forward is in the game at power forward. Seems to only play with another big on the floor at all times, and that's a development thing for Summer League, right? Say you just want to get him going. Maybe you want to boost his trade value. You probably put him at center and try that and try to get him a bunch of stats close to the rim. But they really want to see what he can do at power forward. That's what they're doing. With Tyshawn Alexander, he's coming off the bench. Why? Well, he probably would come off the bench for the Suns. I think they might move into just playing him in that starting lineup because at some point, just get him more minutes, see what he can do. That's kind of why you have this opportunity here.
Yeah, what did he play in the past game? In both games, he's only played like 22, 23 minutes. I understand you got to give everyone time. Like you promised these guys spots here. You can't not play them, but at a certain point in games 3 or 4, it would be nice if we just saw those guys for like 30-plus minutes each.
Yeah, let them just run pick and rolls together.
They're really just, that's what we're there for. So, but yeah, I like what Tyshawn is doing. It's a little unfortunate with him given the two-way contract status because it's if there's always the danger, first of all, that other teams can come along and try and entice him with a guaranteed deal. So it's like the Suns have him for now, but they're kind of stringing him along a little bit. Like if he turns out to look really good, I think in Summer League though, so far he's looked pretty damn good in kind of that backup shooting guard role. I think with him it was always a little bit undersized at the 2 and not quite a playmaker like you would want him to be. Like he's not really that combo guard, but I think the way he's moving around the Suns' offensive sets has been most impressive because the announcers, I forget who it was, maybe Mark Jones in game 1 was even pointing out the fact that the Suns were using him in the same sets that they used Devin Booker, like coming around screens, coming around those pin downs and those flares and kind of firing off mid-range jump shots. He looked pretty comfortable from that position. Also hit a couple of pretty threes. I think his percentage is also not great so far through the first 2 games. But yeah, I think the mechanics are there for Tyshawn to succeed. And so I've been, for a guy who was an undrafted rookie that you're giving a 2-way spot, I have been impressed with what we've seen out of him.
And me too. I think it's really interesting to watch him play because, just sitting on the bench watching Chris Paul and Devin Booker for so long clearly has rubbed off on him. He's able to get to his spots really interestingly. Like every pick and roll that he ran, he was snaking. Like for a young player to do that, I think is kind of interesting because... the Suns have 2 guys that are pros. That's like their thing. They snake pick and rolls, and clearly he picked up on that.
Yeah, I just want to give him media points for, I forget which reporter he said this to, but he said that to one of the reporters, is he said, I'm learning that sort of pick and roll ability from Chris Paul and Devin Booker. So, he's saying the right things. It doesn't always correlate to actual on-court success, but, it's tough to be any young guy in these guys' situations. Talking generally about Tyshawn and Jalen now is like, on the one hand, it's a privilege to come straight into the NBA and play on a good team because you're taught to play the right way by guys who have done it before, by these veterans. I mean, I'm sure they value the fact that they have guys like Chris Paul, Jay Crowder in their ear. and that they can feel like they're really a part of something, that the Suns are really building something here. On the other hand, you want to launch your career at a certain point. It's difficult if it becomes 2 or 3 years straight of kind of not really able to find that consistent role. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch these guys battle it out. If I can just give my quick like conspiracy theory, I don't know if you would call it that, but like I think I'm not like super high on Landry Shamet, right? I kind of think Tyshawn Alexander has that like with Jalen Smith. I kind of don't see it for this year. Like I think he can be something along the way. I think he's also might be a trade chip for the record. So we'll talk more about that. But Tyshawn, there's still like a low chance of this. Like I think Monty's gonna veer towards the giving minutes to the veterans, the guys who have been there before. But I don't know. I kind of believe in Tyshawn's shot. And when you take into account not only his shot, but like the plus measurables, the pressure defense that he's played all throughout college as well, like he's kind of the complete package in theory of a backup two in the way that I think Landry Shamet kind of isn't. I don't know. All I'm saying is I could envision a universe where Tyshawn actually breaks into the Suns rotation. That is very optimistic. Let me say,
I think you just proved that optimism season comes for us all.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. It's optimism season, but it's also pessimism season. Because am I really hyping up Tyshawn, or am I just shitting on Shamet? I'm not sure. It's one or the other, maybe a combination of both.
First of all, Landry Shamet would have had 40 in both of those games, maybe more, had he played, because he's just better than any of those players that were playing. And I think we tend to overestimate players' abilities based on the competition that they're up against, and the fact that Tyshawn has done well. Here's what I'll say. I think that Tyshawn has shown some things in Summer League so far, and even just sort of based on other smart people's estimations of who he is, that if the Suns were to convert his two-way into a guaranteed contract for this year, I think that would be smart for multiple reasons. And I brought this up on Twitter, but I'll just explain why. I think a lot of people have brought up the Suns offseason, and they've said the Suns still have a chance to improve during the regular season, and I think they're right that they will have chances to improve during the regular season. But the truth is, to improve during the regular season, you have to give up assets. You have to give up other players in order to get better players back. Now, it's rare that a situation just falls into your lap like Torrey Craig. Now, that can happen. It's just really rare. It didn't really happen for any other team last year that you just all of a sudden get a player that's going to contribute in the playoffs for nothing. That's probably something that's going to be difficult to happen. If you have somebody young and under contract like Tyshawn Alexander, if he shows something in the NBA, if players get injured and he gets minutes, or he finds a way into the rotation and he shows enough to be a good player, you can trade him. Right now with the two-way deal, because his deal does not count against the cap, the Suns can't really trade him in any moves. Like, they would need salary against the cap in order to get a player back. So to convert his deal into a more of a guaranteed deal this year, I think would be nice for the Suns, because then he becomes maybe a potential player in the rotation. And if he shows something as a young player, if the Suns are making moves in the in the regular season close to the trade deadline, say a team suffered some injuries, or a team did not perform as well as they were, now they want to go young. Well, you had to have young players to offer those teams in order to get veterans back, potential veterans that could compete in the playoffs. So somebody like Tyshawn, maybe he does end up making the roster in one way or another throughout the regular season, and then he could be traded at some point in the season. So I don't know. I like Landry Shamet, and I think we're going to talk more about him later. I think you're still kind of underrating what he can do offensively.
He's fine.
But
he's fine. Like I don't know what to say. He's fine.
Yeah.
I don't hate the guy. It's just, yeah. Tyshawn can play. Watch out.
I don't see. Happen. Here's what I'll say about Tyshawn if we're on him for a second here.
It could happen.
I don't know that his defense is going to translate to the NBA the way I think a lot of people assumed.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I didn't see anything in Summer League. We haven't got a lot of looks at these guys, so it's unfair to judge it so far. But he does look very undersized even in Summer League, and I'm not sure that effort is going to overtake that. Offensively, I think he does some interesting things, though. I'm just not convinced that defensively he's going to get there.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Hand-picked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's be honest. Shopping, not my thing. I go to the store. There's a lot of people that, it's just not my thing. It's not football. All right. I spend way too long scrolling websites just looking for something simple like a nice pair of jeans. And I'm either overwhelmed by all the choices or can't find anything my style and end up with stuff that doesn't fit and doesn't work. That's why I use Stitch Fix. You just take a quick style quiz, share your size, your vibe, and your budget, and boom, you're matched with a real human stylists who handle the rest. They take care of the work for you. They send you a fix box with clothes that actually fit and make sense for your life, work, weekends, whatever. It saves you time. You look great, and you don't even have to think about it. That's the best part. It's no risk, all style. Try it all on in the comfort of your home. Keep what works, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns, always, and no subscription required. Plus, get a free try-on for your first fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/podcast to get $20 off your first order, and they'll waive your styling fee. That's stitchfix.com/podcast.
Jalen Smith might be traded, though. I think we have to transition there. Because today, that's all everyone's talking about.
You sent people into a frenzy. I think you kicked it off.
No. The real guy who kicked it off is the guy who's kind of owned this offseason so far, and that's Jake Fisher. Jake L. Fisher, I believe he goes by, because he has been kind of on top of what a lot of teams are doing in this offseason.
Where did this guy come from?
Well, I think he worked for Bleacher Report initially. I think he wrote a book relatively recently about, I don't remember, the Warriors.
Anyone can write a book. No one knows where this guy came from. Has anyone looked in? Because I've
asked people about him and they vouched for him. I'll say that.
Sounds like an industry plant to me, but I don't know. We'll see. He did get a lot of free agent things right. So I guess I can't knock it.
Yeah, and he said that the Suns were offering Jalen Smith around the league. So maybe I did kick it off, because the day after free agency started, I got on Spaces and I mentioned Thad Young, and we talked.
We should start. We need more segment ideas, dude. We need to break up the monotony a little bit. How about just Mike's trade of the week, where you you piss off as many people as you can by trading one of the darlings.
I've made trades for a lot of players on the Suns, but only one player pisses people off when you trade him, though.
It's true. It's true.
If people want to dig back into the bowels of this podcast, you could even find us just saying who we would trade Devin Booker for at one point, just as a discussion. But it's funny that nobody really got angry at that time. It's just people feel sensitive about different things. Let me see. He wrote the book about tanking. Built to Lose was the name of the book. How the NBA's tanking era changed the league forever. Because it's his pinned tweet. But he said that the Suns were offering Jalen Smith around the league. Now, this is sort of sent Suns fans into a frenzy, and immediately they say Thad Young or Larry Nance Jr., and I don't see that in any way. Personally, I like both of those players a lot.
We need to talk about those names, though, because those are sexy names.
Yes,
sexy.
So I think
those are sexy August names. They're not sexy July names, like when everything usually happens. But like when you're in a content desert in August, like Thad Young just looks like you're starving. You haven't had any.
I love Thad Young. Underrated.
Do NBA GMs know that free agency is still going on right now? Like no one has offered my guy Jared Vanderbilt a contract. I'm completely malnourished, and here's Thad Young. I'm in the desert, and Thad Young is just here. He looks like he might be a mirage, but he might be the juiciest burger I've ever seen. Like Thad Young to me on August 10th looks amazing. Frankly, the idea that I don't think it's going to happen. Great player though, just great player.
So I think the trade that people have sort of thrown out there as far as what the Suns could offer for Thad Young. Thad Young is an interesting one for a few reasons. For those who are not following the offseason, Thad Young was part of a signing trade for DeMar DeRozan, so now he's technically going to be on the Spurs. The signing trade is not completed yet, so maybe the Suns can sort of sneak in there to get him. Thad Young makes a significant amount of money, though. Enough so that the Suns could not just send Jalen Smith straight up for him. They'd have to include Dario Saric and Dario Saric's contract. Or, I mean, I guess you could go beyond that and say somebody like Jay Crowder, which obviously they wouldn't do. But at this point, you're saying Dario Saric, Jalen Smith for Thad Young, and you're sort of trying to talk yourself into the Thunder doing that. I think the Spurs doing that. The tough part, I think, talking yourself into this is trying to convince yourself that a team would want a player in Dario Saric who's not going to play a minute this coming season and who is making $8.5 million. And to me, this is the biggest roadblock. This is the biggest stumbling block that the Suns run into. But beyond that, it's the value of Jalen Smith. Like, if Jalen Smith had been good this last season or had shown something in Summer League, maybe you could say he's good enough to carry a sort of deadweight contract in Dario Saric in this upcoming season. Saric could obviously perform well the following season, but this upcoming season, he's not going to play a single game. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough because, to your point, I mean, there's only so many guys. So you need a guy, if you're packaging Dario and Jalen together in a trade, you need someone in that roughly you can take back up to 125% of the salaries in return. Maybe it's 120%. I need to check the CBA again. I'm rusty on my trade machine rules, which I shouldn't be. Roughly $13 to $17 million, though. About 17 and a half, give or take a couple $100,000 is the highest you could go. There's only so many players in the NBA who actually make that. That's like quite a mid-tier salary. There's maybe only a couple dozen guys in the entire league who are within that tier. Thad Young is one of them, but even if you clear that initial roadblock of just finding a guy who has the right money to match, he also needs to be on a team that's interested in taking, to your point, Mike, like taking back Jalen Smith in the first place would be very much a rebuilding trade for San Antonio. It's like a tanking kind of trade. Like, we take an asset and a player who's not going to play, and we're going to get worse this year and tank for picks. So you need to find a team that's rebuilding with a mid-sized contract. I have scanned through the list of other guys, like Thad Young makes that level of money. I've scanned through the list just with a cursory glance of all the other guys who make that level of money. I haven't seen any obvious names myself. We can look through that in a minute if you're interested. With Thad, I will reiterate, Thad is awesome. I just want to contextualize. He averaged, keep in mind, only 24 minutes a game this year for Chicago. He was kind of on and off as a starter, started 23 games for them. But in 24 minutes, put up 12.1 points, 6.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists. That's huge for a power forward. 4.3 assists. 1.1 steals, 0.6 blocks, and only 2 turnovers. Great assist-to-turnover ratio. Guy who really moves the ball well for his position, like probably 90th percentile or above for his position. It doesn't exactly have a three-point shot. It's kind of come and gone throughout his career, but has that mid-range touch for sure and can score in a variety of ways. He'd be your backup power forward, but he'd also instantly be maybe your 5th or 6th best player. There's definitely a case for that. So, yeah, I mean, last week, weren't we talking about, let's talk about moves that actually upgrade the top 7 of this team's rotation? If the idea is you get more top-tier talent, I'm not here arguing that Thad Young is, the Suns' equivalent to a Westbrook trade. But if in August it's maybe the best you can do with the limited talent pool that you have, the limited, assets, it would be a great trade. But yeah, I frankly don't think it's enough for San Antonio to bite. I think they would want more than just Jalen Smith. Maybe that's extra picks. Maybe they just say, fuck Jalen Smith, give us Cam Johnson. At which point that's too much. You can't afford to do that.
Yeah, you say no. And I think that's I think where at some point maybe we can have a conversation about maybe the Suns pulled the trigger on trading somebody like Javon Carter a little too early or something, maybe even the 29th pick, which had value. Now, this is all dependent, I think, on how you feel about Landry Shamet, which I think you and I are sort of differing on that. But I think it would be nice to have a little more to work with when you're talking about this potential move. And, pulling the trigger early on a trade like they did before the draft limits your flexibility because things like this sign and trade with DeMar DeRozan had not yet happened yet, where Thad Young could potentially shake loose. And maybe, like the best case scenario ultimately is Thad Young is somehow bought out of his contract, does not want to play with San Antonio. The Suns could use the rest of their MLE to sign him, which gives them a little bit of a leg up on other teams.
That would be...
Or the biannual exception that can get him for 2 years in that case.
From a guy who has I feel like lightly criticized. I haven't gone after JJ as hard as I could have. Let me just be clear.
Yeah, well, it's not over yet.
Exactly, and that's why I haven't done it. But for a guy who has been somewhat critical of the fact that here the Suns are with an open roster spot, a lot of money that they haven't spent that they could have, and it's like, what are you doing with the waiting game at this point? What are you really going to get? I mean, if Thad Young got bought out and you got him, like if that's what you got with the remainder of your money, that's like the best case scenario. That's like an A+ acquisition at that point. So I would be elated if something like that happens.
But, and it would be an amazing. It would be unlikely.
But if they just turn around and give their remaining $4 million to Paul Millsap, who's still on the market, by the way, like that's decent player.
It's fine. Thad Young's like a better version of Paul Millsap.
That's like fine. Thad Young is like better than Paul Millsap at everything at this point, which is it's kind of funny to say because Millsap's had the better career. He was an all-star. He was an all-star, but at this point, Thad's longevity is really impressive, man. I mean, he just turned 33 years old. For him to still be playing at this level, if you look back at his stats, his second season with Philly in 2008-2009 as a 20-year-old, he started 71 games. He averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds per game. And every season since then, he's been in double digits for like 12 or 13 years straight. Just really quietly. Has quietly been one of the best role players in the NBA for a long time. It's a pretty impressive resume.
And when we talk about Dario Saric as sort of the net rating king that he was for the Suns this last year, that's what Thad was for Chicago. Like every lineup with Thad Young was better than every lineup without Thad Young this last year. He tends to make teams better. And I think the passing is really one of the main reasons for him. Because guys with the ball, if they're unable to hit shots on a regular basis, passing sort of opens up a lot of lanes for other players to cut. The Suns have a pretty good cutting team. Per 30, like on a per minute basis, he technically averaged. On the Suns, he would average the third most assists on the Suns on a per minute basis. I mean, that's how good of a playmaker he is.
His per 36 numbers. Oh, you're gonna make me look this up real quick.
It's 6 assists.
His per 36 numbers, he averaged 18, 9, and 6.
Yeah.
Now, let me just guess. The per 36 numbers of another guy who I've heard, an all-star who I've heard Suns fans bring up, Sabonis, is 20, 12, and 6.5. Not that far off. No. Honestly, not that far off.
Let me just say this,
is a really good player.
If the Suns were to trade Dario Saric, Jalen Smith, and more, maybe, right? Maybe second-round picks or something, for Thad Young, we cannot overstate how much that is punting on the highest draft pick that you're going to have for years for a 33-year-old player on an expiring deal. And I think this is what the Suns are likely going to struggle with here. Because for Thad Young, say he does come on the Suns, he plays all right this year, you're paying him $14 million for this year. And then he could leave. Like, he could just be gone. And then the Suns will be 1 year off of Jalen Smith and Dario Saric with nothing to show for it as an over-the-cap team, which now puts them in a difficult position to find other players. So it is, for as good as Thad Young would be on the Suns and as nice of an acquisition as it would be, and as fun as it would be to come up with interesting lineups with him playing, it cannot be understated that it is still a risk. Like, this is not just an absolute home run. It's a complicated thing for the Suns to really weigh out here. It's Dario Saric's contract is still there. Like, they have to convince a team to take on $8.5 million of nobody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. But if you could convince anyone to do it, I mean, I don't know what frankly, I don't know what the hell the Spurs are doing.
I can't believe Popovich is even coaching that team.
Like $14 million to Doug McDermott, $8 million to Zach Collins.
Who both technically play the same position as Jalen Smith.
those seem like, well, Zach Collins does. McDermott doesn't. But those seem like contracts that you only give out if you're like, yeah, we need to like hit the salary floor, but we don't want to be good this year. Like, you know, that's kind of what that smells like. I mean, they've done it before. That's how they got Duncan in the first place. That's all I'm saying. But,
and maybe they're tanking, and, you know, if they'd have the minutes to develop a guy like Jalen Smith. And so the mystery of the Spurs is the only reason that we can entertain this one as long as we did. Because like when we're talking about Larry Nance Jr., I don't see that at all. I just don't see any scenario where they would take the money from the Suns for Dario Saric. They're trying to win this year. They want the Cavs, good players.
See, that's a difference. The Spurs are like very much at the, hey, we might need to reset right now. We might need to give up the ghost and reset. The Cavs are a couple years further along their journey where they're like, hey, we can't afford to, we don't want to lose Sexton and like other pieces here. We need to kind of get this moving. So I think they're at a point where they're not even interested in entertaining that. They're trying to move upwards. With regard to the other thing that you were saying, I mean, it's always a risk. Right? This trade would be a risk.
Yeah.
I still think it's like if you could do it though, it's like an A+ acquisition given that context.
This season.
Like,
yeah,
sure. But I mean, this is the unfortunate thing about the position that James Jones has put us in. We talk about how James Jones says fuck you to asset management, and like that's great. You know, I like, you know, cussing out the draft Twitter nerds as much as the next guy, but at a certain point, you reap what you sow. And if you go 2 years in a row missing on draft picks and then like not even trying to do your due diligence about like, you know, some teams acquire second round picks at the end of the draft. They sign on undrafted guys. Obviously, the Suns did that with Tyshawn. They could have done it again this year. They chose not to for whatever reason. I mean, if you don't create that sort of treasure chest and give yourself the chance to discover the next diamond in the rough, you end up in this situation where you have limited assets and you have to make difficult decisions. And you know, if Jalen's the best we've got at this point, I'll admit that's a difficult decision. But also, what are you punting for? Like Chris Paul's 37.
Yeah,
you know,
try to win the championship this year.
Try to win the. I mean, you've built the team up to this point where it's like your only choice is to try to win the championship this year. I feel like, personally, my opinion.
And you should.
If you have a chance to do something like this. Again, it's a bit nuanced because it's like what we were saying last week. If it's to go out and get an 8th or 9th or 10th player, I'm not interested. But if it's to go out and get a guy who can legitimately be a top 4, 5, maybe even 6 player in your rotation, and for the record, I totally believe Thad Young could do that. That's how good he was last year. Then I think you do it. And yeah, I still don't think this is going to happen, but I think they should think about it.
I'm gonna throw a few guys at you in just a second. Just on that. But yeah, I think you're right. And I think for those, look, I don't want to depress people by talking about who the Suns could have picked.
Optimism season, come on.
But look, Halliburton was there, and the Suns could have picked Halliburton. Now, if you're one of those,
he also totally would have played. Like,
and if you're one of those people who say that somehow there is no role for him on this team, well, guess what? He would have a lot of value on the trade market.
Yeah. Also,
it's not just about who's playing. Like you package a guy like Halliburton together with, say, somebody like Mikal Bridges, and you're looking for another star for the Suns, you could probably get that at that point.
Also, Halliburton wouldn't have played the 1,500 minutes or whatever he got in Sacramento. But lest we forget, Etuan Moore played a not insignificant number of minutes at point guard for the Suns last year, even sometimes in the playoffs. Halliburton would have found a role. He would have, because he would have been forced into that. They would have played Halliburton over Etuan Moore in those minutes, and he would have looked good enough to flash something, and other teams would have been interested. And then maybe you take that to the trade market and you have something, or you decide to develop him instead. Who knows?
Yeah, you can't hit on all of them, and James Jones did not necessarily hit on that Jalen Smith pick. We'll see what he does if he's got the balls to punt on that pick and move on to other guys. I do want to outline something that I think the Suns are running into, one of the issues that they could be potentially running into here, and that's the Dario Saric money. And what I wanted to do is I took Dario out of it, and I took that Jake Fisher report at face value, which is that the Suns were shopping Jalen Smith around. He didn't even report the Dario Saric thing. That came from other places, and I think the logical conclusion is that the Suns are trying to tie Dario Saric to him because in Suns fans' eyes, he's an asset. So what I did is I tried to look for guys that they could potentially just trade Jalen Smith for, and I'm going to throw these guys at you. They're not all that exciting, and they're not realistic.
Trade of the week.
Yeah,
here we go.
They're not realistic in any way. Ultimately, I wanted to outline the difficulty of this. That's really what this exercise is for. And the way I look at the hole in the Suns roster right now, because of the lack of Torrey Craig and sort of the hole that they're facing, the hole that they're staring down right now, is a backup for Mikal Bridges in my mind. And that's, I think, the biggest issue that they're running into at this time. So I was trying to find a backup small forward that could potentially play, mostly small forward, but that could potentially play power forward.
Hold on. That's interesting, though, because what that means, what you're saying there is you want Cam Johnson to be playing a lot of power forward, which he can do, but that's a thing that you're saying, which is interesting.
Yes. I think the combination of Cameron Johnson and Jay Crowder works in my mind. I mean, if you could find more of a power forward that could fit, but like when I was looking at the guys in this trade market, these were the guys that made sense for me, I guess, for the Suns, and you'll see why.
Okay.
I'll throw you the one more serious one and then the kind of funny one after that. One guy that fits salary-wise that could be traded to a team that's maybe not necessarily going to be that great this coming season. It was the Indiana Pacers, and it was Justin Holiday for Jalen Smith.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
come on.
I know
I love that.
Justin Holiday is on a 2-year deal. His salary is like in an amount that you could easily swap for Jalen Smith. Now, whether or not the Pacers would do this, it's hard to say. Like, I don't really know what their front office is feeling at this time. I just think when you look at a guy who's ready to win right now and maybe is not a perfect fit on their roster, that's something they could do. Now, they have a lot of forwards. Maybe they could play Jalen Smith at center. They have a few centers too, as we all know. That's one of their problems. But if it's something that they actually kind of change to maybe going a little more of a youth movement, as people say, being bad, playing guys that are young to see what their potential is, that could work. So it seems like you like Justin Holiday, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he does role player things that are important. He hits threes and plays good perimeter defense. Yeah, he's like, Mikal Bridges is
exactly.
He's Mikal Bridges' absolute floor is kind of what Justin Holiday is.
Yeah, coming in to back up Mikal Bridges, I think would make a lot of sense there. This other one was just kind of a funny option because I just thought it works salary-wise, and that's Jarrett Culver for Jalen Smith. And this is for two reasons.
You.
One, it works salary-wise. Two, he plays small forward, so there's more minutes at small forward for the Suns in their current state.
You're fucked.
And Minnesota doesn't want him anymore. And and this is one of those moves where it's like, I don't know, maybe the Suns could fix him. Like maybe a better situation could fix him. They seem to be done with him, right? There's reports that they were looking for anything for him at some point. And it's just one that I wanted to put out there to see your reaction. But
we've reached a Suns exceptionalism phase, like similar to what with the Warriors fans of
we can fix him
taking on. Yeah, exactly. We can fix him. Oh, I can fix him.
Yeah.
He's different. I can fix him. Yeah, trying to take on reclamation projects.
Would you do that?
Not. No. I don't believe in Jarrett Culver anymore. Although I will say, once upon a time, I absolutely did.
Do you still think that Jarrett Culver does not have a higher ceiling than Jalen Smith?
Do I still?
Do you think that? I guess is a better way to put it.
Do I think that Jarrett Culver has a higher ceiling than Jalen Smith?
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
No, because Jalen's interesting if he pans out, right?
There's this massive Minnesota caveats on all of this. I think.
Well, why do you think I like Vanderbilt so much? Because for me, half of the calculus there was if you can find a young player who's just thrown into the fire of complete garbage and they still look okay, then that you probably really have something there. But to your point, Culver, you can take a guy who's bad in those situations, and it's just a true reclamation project, did not show any redeeming signs whatsoever, and you can afford to take a gamble. It's not the type of gamble that I would take.
Yeah.
With Jalen, if he's our last asset, wouldn't do it. But it's a funny idea, and I'm glad you brought it up for the podcast.
Here's what I'll say. You're probably right, and I think there's a chance that Jalen Smith ends up a better player than Jarrett Culver. I have no idea. I truly have no idea for either of these guys, because I think with Jarrett Culver, it's hard to judge because of the situation he's in. And actually the same thing with Jalen Smith, but for different reasons. Jarrett Culver getting a ton of minutes on a bad team with maybe not the best development staff is sort of unfortunate for him. No stability. his inability to overcome that is not something that I would necessarily hold against young players. Very few of them are like Devin Booker in that they're capable of overcoming that. With Jalen Smith, it's like we haven't seen enough to know exactly how good he's going to be, so it's hard. It's just a fun one to throw out there, just kind of funny, because the Suns traded Jarrett Culver, essentially. He wore a Suns hat on draft night. I mean, we wouldn't have to Photoshop that. But yeah, that's just for fun. Justin Holiday one, feel free to let us know what you think about that. And if you want to laugh about the Jarrett Culver one, you can let us know what you think about that as well. 2 other things happened since the last time we talked. And I think both of them are interesting for different reasons. One of them is, and I think this is relevant to the Jalen Smith conversation, Frank Kaminsky signed with the Suns once again. I think once and for all, letting everybody know that they do not see Jalen Smith as a center, because they're not letting Jalen Smith be the third string center. They clearly wanted another guy to play that third string center role, and that was Frank Kaminsky, who's back on a 1-year vet minimum, something that we talked about. And I said that I still think it's going to be Frank on the last episode. It ended up being him. I'm not going to say I'm like disappointed at this. I think Frank Kaminsky on a vet minimum deal is fine. What do you think?
Yeah, on a vet min deal, he's totally fine. He's back again, not once, not twice, not 3 times. Maybe 4, 5, or 6 if they keep re-signing him to these veteran minimum deals eventually. Yeah. Look, Frank in a third string role, totally fine. You don't want him to play in the finals, but hopefully he doesn't have to. And that's basically the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think it says more about what they want to do with Jalen Smith than anything else, and I think that's why it's kind of interesting, because they clearly see him as a forward or just out of the rotation entirely. It's one of those 2 things at this point. With Frank, it's kind of nice to have somebody that can do some things that the other 2 guys can't. He's definitely a break glass in case of emergency player here, and that's just what he's going to be in the NBA, I think, for a while here. Maybe he'll improve. I don't know. Who knows? Last one, Elfrid Payton, vet minimum deal. I don't know how to talk about this. What do you think?
Well, this one I've calmed down on, but I will say when the news broke was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back that made me log off Twitter for a couple days. It wasn't just that, but it was fun. Like,
do you think this is related to the fact that you're around some Knicks fans where you are and they hated him?
They do hate him. When I went to work the next day, I got a lot of laughs. It's like, ha, you got Elfrid Payton. It's like, ha, your franchise is paying Julius Randle $40 million. I think it's miraculous how it's optimism season, look, right? So, people will talk themselves into anything, Elfrid Payton included. I refuse to do that. I will not talk myself into Elfrid Payton as being a good basketball player, because he is not. However, a couple days removed from the news, we can kind of like look back at it from a different vantage point, and with a clearer mind, I do understand he was a starter on a Knicks team where he shouldn't have been a starter. It is a much different role for him as a third string point guard. He can move the ball well. Let me pull up his stats real quick, just for the. I mean, he played poorly last year, Mike. I can't lie.
Let me just say, just to Knicks fans quickly, for Knicks fans who are making jokes about the fact that the Suns signed Elfrid Payton, the fact that Elfrid Payton started for the Knicks last year and is now the third string point guard for the Suns this year, says a lot more about the Knicks than it does about the Suns.
It says a lot about Thibodeau specifically, because they didn't want him to be starting. They would probably rather Frank or Dennis Smith Jr.
I mean, they wanted more quickly minutes.
Quickly.
Like they literally
mainly
or
wanted
Rose,
quickly.
Of course, Derrick Rose as well.
Yeah. So, look, here's the thing. 48% true shooting. That's bad.
He can't finish. Like, there's nothing he can do around pick and rolls. That's the tough
here's
part.
Here's why I think the Suns got him, though, because I want to give a shout out to our friend Kranjis, Tim. Kranjis McBasketball covers the Lakers, but also started the B-Ball Index for a tool of theirs, I should say, that I was playing around with the other day, which looks at a few different factors in team building, and basically ranks players and ranks teams, and it's a lineup optimization tool is what it is, and assigns a percentile rank to each thing at like different players' ability to do stuff. So, for example, based on your shooting, and this is like different types of shooting. It's catch and shoot, it's pull up, it's all sorts of stuff. It gives you a spacing rank, right? And so you see how each guy fits into the spacing of a lineup. It gives a percentile grade to each of them. Well, one thing that it does, one of the other concepts that it covers is getting to the rim. And I was looking at where the Suns' holes were as a starting lineup. I just plugged their starting lineup into the tool. And, you know, I'm not taking these numbers as gospel. I just think it's kind of interesting from a bird's eye view. It basically said, the Suns' starting lineup had like 90th percentile spacing, really good playmaking. When they get to the rim, they finish it really well because you've got guys like Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, their efficiencies were off the charts. The obvious weakness was I think they were in the 8th percentile, their starting lineup, of getting to the rim. It's like, and we know this about the Suns. It's like it passes the eye test, right? I'm not telling you anything new. But it was like, these guys don't get to the rim. Chris Paul doesn't get to the rim. Mikal Bridges doesn't get to the rim. He's great when he like just, you know, catches the ball there off a cut and like puts it up and scores. But it's like, it's more about when you have the ball from the outset, you're on the perimeter, you're driving the ball. Don't stop short and shoot the mid-range. Actually go all the way and get to the rim. That's how you get to the free throw line. That's how you get opponents into foul trouble and really punish them in the way that you need to in the playoffs. It's, you know, we've talked about this with the Suns before. But so I was looking through, after that, I was looking through all of the Suns lineups. I was like, okay, well, what if you put Cam Payne in? Cam Payne's pretty good at driving. What if you swap Mikal Bridges for Cam Johnson? He's a little bit better. No matter what I did, I was not able to get the Suns a lineup in this tool that was considered above average at getting to the rim in the first place. Mm-hmm. They had good spacing, good playmaking, good once they got there. But can they get there in the first place? Could not find a combination that worked until you throw Elfrid Payton into the mix. And this is really true. Elfrid Payton, according to the B-Ball Index data. Now, here's the thing. A 48% true shooting is very bad. What that implies is that once he's getting there, he's not doing anything with it. But what I will tell you, this is not falsified data. This is not fake news. 99th percentile at getting to the rim was Elfrid Payton.
Yeah.
Because I guess evidently when you don't have a shot, you need to find a way to survive in the NBA. And your way to do that is to use your speed and athleticism in a way that gets you to the rim as often as possible. So the Suns wanted a guy who could get there. They got a guy who could get there. Technically, that doesn't mean he should play a lot of minutes. That doesn't mean that once he gets there, he's going to be making those layups even. But they got a guy who gets there. Read as much as you want into that.
Yeah.
As you think is important. I don't think it's going to be a difference maker, but I have been able to talk myself not into Elfrid Payton being a good player, but into being a third string point guard who occasionally, like if you're going to rest Chris Paul and play Payton for 20 minutes while Cam Payne takes the reins in a regular season game, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. It's funny because I think you almost accidentally outlined why he's so frustrating. In that, when you have a on-ball playmaker who's sort of a pick-and-roll type playmaker, if they can't pull up, if they can't hit the three, if they can't pull up from mid-range and they can't finish at the rim, it becomes a little bit easier to defend them, right? Because there's a huge glaring hole in the pick-and-roll. The whole point of the pick-and-roll is that they're a threat to pass or to score at any level of the floor. And that's why guys like Chris Paul are able to play and get over $100 million potentially into their 40s. And guys like Elfrid Payton are coming off of starting in the playoffs to sign a vet minimum deal for a single year. Being a threat at all three levels is what makes you effective. But like you're right, ultimately it's a third string role. Nothing exciting about it. But also, I think it's fine as well because when I looked at the Knicks last year, I looked at a team that was very, 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 very focused on defense and not very focused on offense. And with the Suns, you have a lot of guys that can kind of show somebody like Elfrid Payton how to do the right things offensively in Devin Booker, Cameron Payne, Chris Paul. I think he could be a lot better for the Suns, even in his role, than he was for the Knicks last year. So it's hard to judge it from that perspective. But I do think that people sort of doubting the importance of a third string point guard, I think it's important because I think for one, number one most important thing the Suns should be focusing on next year during the regular season is ensuring that the most important players are healthy for the playoffs. And that means having proper 3x5, as James Jones put it, proper backups who can fill in when those guys are not playing in the regular season, whether that be forcing Chris Paul to rest if you can, or having the right kind of guys to play if they're injured. So I do think that role is still an important role. I mean, we've seen this team without point guards. It's ugly. It's very, very ugly.
Right.
I still think it's important.
Which is why the only question you really have to ask yourself is Elfrid Payton better than Etuan Moore playing out of position? And the answer to that, I think, is emphatically yes.
I think he can be. I'll say that.
Well,
I'm not sure.
We can still look at it and say that this is not James Jones hitting it out of the park. This is nothing to be excited about.
Right.
I mean, like, come on.
Here's what I'll say about Etuan Moore is Etuan Moore didn't do a lot when he was put in that position, but he also didn't make a lot of mistakes. And I think there's value in
conservatively.
that. Yeah, there's value in just a guy who comes in and doesn't screw up a whole bunch.
Eats minutes without doing anything, Thon Maker style. Right? 30 minutes, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Those were some of those games with Etuan Moore.
Yeah.
But by the way, the Suns went 1-18 last time Elfrid Payton was a Sun in his 19 games.
Yeah.
And Devin Booker was his only teammate that remains on the current team. Isn't that crazy? That was only a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was ugly.
Do you think Devin Booker left with a good impression? Like, do you think he vouched for this signing at all, or was it purely a coaching staff move?
Every smart team talks to players, their star players, about moves. So I can't imagine they would have signed him if he protested too much. So I imagine it was okay.
That makes me wonder what other deep, dark point guards you could reach into from that era that Devin Booker has like a surprisingly positive opinion on.
Oh, maybe that's why the Suns didn't sign Gorgui Dieng.
Gorgui Dieng, yeah. I mean, it might be. Like, what does
Devin Booker doesn't like him?
What does Devin Booker think about like Josh Gray? I think that's a name that we had at some point. I can't even remember. What is it? Let me find some others.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he's forgotten about that at this point. Mike James.
Well, that's an obvious one because
Jimmer Fredette.
He's still in the league. Jimmer Fredette. Josh Gray, he did play for us.
Isaiah Kanan,
of course. Tyler Ulis, we know, is his guy.
Tyler Ulis had a moment. He had a moment with the Suns in that that game winner.
I'll never forget. I was talking about this with my friend the other day, actually. I was like, I will never forget that Tyler Ulis game winner where I was. God, the things that used to make us so excited is a little bit sad now. What does Devin Booker think of Ronnie Price?
He doesn't. He doesn't think about him at all.
What does he think of Jawan Evans? Like just some of them.
Seth
my
Curry.
God. Seth Curry was the one example of a guy who we actually missed on.
Yeah.
We had him. God, that would have been awesome if they could have developed Seth Curry, but we let him slip away. I forget where he went to, like Dallas first and then Portland and then back to Dallas or something. I can't remember.
I think so. Something like that.
That one actually
didn't
worked.
play much. We will be back soon. Now, here's one thing I will say. We're on a not recording schedule at this point. We're sort of on a reactionary schedule. We're going to come to you guys whenever things happen in the short term. At some point, we'll be back on a regular weekly schedule. You get an episode for us every week. You'll probably still get one every week for us now. I can't tell you exactly when it's going to be. Whenever something happens, we will be there, though. Whenever
the spirit of optimism compels us to make an episode, we will not let you down. Thank you guys for listening. Till next time.
You don't need a three. Right. Bledsoe puts it up and in! Ties it up with 4 seconds to go. Thomas loses the ball. A chance to win. Ulis! Good! Unbelievable! Tyler Ulis at the buzzer!
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it. And trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Ro Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Ro Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment, plus it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you could go back to back to back, round after round after round. Ro connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to ro.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.